Hi everyone, it's Jerry. I have a nice game to share with you from Chess.com's Computer Chess Championship 21. On the white end, Leela ChessNetwork, playing against Torch. Alright, this is game 94 in their match in this event. Time control is 10+3. As is the usual case in these events, the game begins from a specific position out of the opening. The opening, modern defense. Now, we're not quite at the start position. Just want to note a couple things here. The pressure on d4, how to address that. If you develop the bishop to defend, that would permit queen takes b2. We have the line where the knight goes to the edge, kicks the queen away from d4. This here is our start position. Now, if you've been tracking this event closely, you may recall the game where Leela, with the black pieces, defeated Stockfish by trapping Stockfish's rook. We have something very similar happening in this game. Not only is there a rook trap in this one, but the formula for converting that full point is also similar, which is to say the opening up of another wing. Let's continue. Some security required over d4. The knight was not a reliable defender of this point. Queen knights now on productive squares. And early on in this one, we can note two imbalances, unopposed light square bishop and space for white on the queen side. h5 met with h4. White says you will go no further. You will not establish a pawn on my side of the board. That's one way you can look at it. Another, this guy maybe has a future target now that this guy is fixed on a light square. All right, a6, queen d2. c5. The position has become a bit more locked, a bit more strategic. It's in these environments I feel Leela shines brightest. The more instances of fixed pawns I feel, the better in general for Leela. Okay, bishop e2. Watches out over a possible b5 break. There may even be this time-sensitive idea of g3 and f4. Note black's timely follow-up, bishop h6. A nice general principle being applied here by black, which is to say when competing against the bishop pair, try to get rid of one of the bishops. If black doesn't play this move straight away, there could maybe be g3 and then f4, and the dark square bishops would remain. Okay. You cannot avoid the dark square bishop exchange now, so what do you do in the meantime? Well, white plays on the side of the board where white has space. a3. White's playing on the queen side. White preps the b4 break. It does have to crack open in some way. b4 is the way. There go the dark square bishops. Now, for many moves in this game, we're going to see basically passing moves, non-productive moves. This is one of many. Okay, I guess this is something we should really expect in a way with these engine games. Difficult to really come up with a plan. All right, rook b1, in comes b4. The follow-up here, king f8. What happens if the structure changes some on the queen side? What happens after this capture? We'd have a queen exchange and the recapture with the rook. Play now for white along the b file. All right, king f8 in this one. b5, there's a threat to carve out a square for the knight. b5 is the big square. The threat, take on a6, and black would not be able to recapture with the pawn. The queen is hit. So she gets out of the way. Black's now in a spot to recapture with the pawn. King d2. No castles for white. The rooks are connected. The king is fine right in the center. It is locked after all. Watch the star role the white king plays in this game. It's really something special. All right, rook g8. Check is flicked in. Not really a whole lot is being accomplished with the king side moves. It's really the queen side play we should focus on the most. This is where there's tension. This is where it could immediately crack open. After the rooks are doubled on the b file, we have a very important moment coming up. a5, what to do here. What move would you play? Feel free to pause the video. Okay. Move played here, b6. I feel this is the only way white could try to win this game. Why is that the case? Well, if you don't play b6, let's say a king move, I guess good as any other piece move, black can play b6, and the position becomes a bit too locked. Earlier I was saying the more instances of fixed pawns, the better for Leela, but again, I feel this one is a bit too locked. The queenside would be shut down. And the knights will probably find it much easier to just focus on the king side of the board, which is the only side that can basically crack open now. All right. The short stepping pieces will find it easier in this environment. How are things different with b6? Well, how are things not different with b6? There's really a lot to digest with this one single pawn move. What are some things we could note? First of all, the b5 square has opened up for the knight. Of course, the rooks have access to it, but mostly it's the knight that wants to make use of that b5 square. A point where, well, a square from which it applies pressure to a base point. This may cause some restriction on black's end. How can black arrange the pieces so that d6 is conveniently defended? Before playing b6, white has to know, well, before you play b6, you have to know that that pawn can be tracked down. Let's take stock of the attackers and defenders. 2 attackers, 2 defenders, but right around the corner for black is a 3rd attacker. This pawn will soon fall. White is basically saying, I'm okay with that. I just want to ensure another wing of the board remains opened. It's not only the b5 square we could think about, the knight getting to, but an opened diagonal as well. There may be some lines where the bishop is productive when posted on a4. Are we done yet? There's one other detail, a long-term idea I want to note here, and that is a scenario where the position has been simplified to a significant degree. So for instance, let's say we have a queen exchange and both minor pieces are exchanged and maybe even a pair of rooks. Let's say we get to a rook-specific ending. In that scenario, do not forget about this idea either. And that is the king walking up to b5, applying pressure to the a5 pawn would restrict black's only piece. That is possible as well. Okay, all of that with a single pawn move. Coming up, rook a6 in this game, bishop f1, rook takes b, no rook exchange, b file clogged up by the knight. White, in a way, says, I will decide when my rooks are activated. For right now, this rook feeling pretty clumsy. Okay, has a sad responsibility now, watching over this base point. So white's down the pawn, but how valuable is the b7 pawn? It's kind of a half-dead pawn. Okay, a4, rook b2, we're getting some repositioning in here. Where is there going to be some progress? Okay, black is going to c7 square, trying to get rid of this knight. King a2. In the game, knight takes knight is played. What's happening if the rook goes to a6? We're going to see soon enough what's going to happen after knight takes knight. If rook a6 is played instead, with the idea to next take the knight, white can play on the king side right away with f4. And now knight takes knight, pawn takes. White is going to be able to crack open the king side. Initially, I thought you swipe the knight and then break down the center, but considered even better is to go with f5. And now the f file will soon be peeled open, and white will not have to worry ever about this knight getting to e5. These guys are very clumsy. White will be very quick to get to the C file. There's maybe even in some cases a G4 pawn break. The black king is going to be in some trouble. Okay, this is a direction the game can go if rook a6 in this position. But in this game, there's knight takes knight, and now in comes pawn takes knight. And if you were familiar with the game I was referencing at the start of the video, look what just happened. The b6 rook is now stuck. We have a trapped rook. In the Leela game against Stockfish, Leela with the black pieces, we had Leela with a black pawn established on d4, and Stockfish's white rook was trapped on b3. Look at how similar it is in this game. This time, Leela with a pawn on d5, black rook trapped on this corresponding b6 square. A similar formula is now going to be applied in this game. How to defend this guy right here, the b5 pawn, in a convenient way. What piece to allocate to the b pawn's defense? The bishop. There we go. It has this responsibility to watch over the pawn. The bishop controls the rook. The plan here, open up the king side of the board. All right, let's see how that happens. Some more maneuvers in here. Black cannot take twice on this square. I had a look at the two chops on g4. There's going to be a problem now for the knight. If you go here, the rook goes there. Problem on the f file. And if the knight goes here, there's queen g5. White will soon get the pawn back. This guy remains a clown. All right, can't take twice here. Also, as white, you don't want to take here because then the knight would have access to an excellent square on f4. So, let's see how the position opens up. Eventually, the knight is kicked. In comes g5. And now, white is able to track down the a-pawn. Bad news for black. White is now not down any material. And black now has to worry about this a-pawn coming up to a5, and the rook is toast. Okay, so what does this mean? Well, the black major pieces will now have this sad responsibility of blockading the a5 push. So this requires two major pieces, the queen and the rook, because at any moment there can be pressure on this rook with next up a5. Okay, black is all in on the queen side. Okay, overcommitted, you might say, on the queen side. How to make progress? Well, white has all day to reorganize the pieces. What better diagonal for this guy? Knight has to go back. And now, king c2, queen a7. Something you may be tempted to do here, queen c3, put some pressure on the rook, keep the queen directly defending a5. There's a tactical flaw if this queen goes to c3. Rook takes b is there. There's a problem on a2. So the queen on this exact square has a responsibility against a potential tactic on b5. Where is this king going? King d3, king e3. There is another pawn break in the position, and it is f4. The king is coming to the center, supporting this very advance, and is cool on the fourth rank, even though there are these major pieces and a knight around. Black is in no position to get at the king. Mission accomplished. The position has now opened up a bit more. Where do we go from here? Queen is eyeing up e5. Denied. Queen is excellent on c3. Cuts right into black's camp. Both diagonals are cut into. All right, rook a8, rook b2. Nice coordination. Rooks are defended. Where do we go from here? Mysterious, another mysterious move, rook to b8. This guy is simply stuck. Now that this is defended, we have the threat a5. Black tries to delay that with c4. A nice follow-up here. This pawn is hit twice. Defended 0. How would you approach this position? Feel free to pause the video. Okay, nice instructive point here. Not capturing with either piece. White simply throws a third attacker on it. The rook is the one responsible to recapture. This queen is perfect here. Stops the check. That's one detail. And another, if black tries to get here, well, the queen supports bishop h3. Queen, perfect on c3. The rook tracks the c-pawn down. The bishop recaptures. The queen will be able to sneak in. There's also a pin here. But this guy remains stuck. You don't even need the bishop around to keep the rook stuck. Okay, the pawns alone restrict the rook. Black's playing down a piece. Now the king, mission accomplished on the king side. He's going to hide on the queen side. These guys get tracked down in the process, but so too does the rook. There's no saving the black rook. And we're at the point where we just convert. So let's see the technique. Perfect centralization for the white queen. And you could, in this position, take the pawn. Right? This guy is pinned, but she stays put. Nice and central. Works on getting the bishop to a better position. And tracking down this guy here. 3 passed pawns, but they're all under control. Offer a queen exchange, and we can see they're just going to fall one by one. I like this last move. Restricts the knight before being cut off with b5. This guy's going nowhere. H-pawn is gone, and now there's the threat to take the knight and then take here. Knight gets out of the way. Rook is in a position to watch out for this pawn advance. Bishop takes, knight c5. Follow up, bishop c6. If you take the knight, it's considered a draw. This guy can advance, no stopping it. Okay. Bishop c6, knight b3, b7. Okay. For a human, probably not the cleanest approach. b7 in this position. If this pawn advances, now you have to go here, allow the rook to be captured, and then that's your way to stop the pawn. Okay. Anyhow, computers following up in this way. There goes one pawn with check, and white makes it really simple, getting rid of the queen for a pawn. And we're going to have this game actually end with the same number of moves in the Leela game against Stockfish. A 115 move game, taking some time out to swipe the knight. Not the fastest, but we end up mating move 115, queen g2, game over. What did you think of this one? Anyhow, feel free, as usual, to leave any feedback to this video in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed it. Maybe took a thing or two away. That's all for now. Take care.